Dudes and dudettes, welcome back to another episode of Gnarly versus Rad, where each week we try and solve some of the 80s and early 90s most heated debates. We talk about things, movies, music, actors, sports. We talk about all that, but it's got to be from the 80s to the early 90s, but mostly the 80s. Today we've got an exciting topic, one that was pretty heated back in the day. A lot of debate back in the day. I think more light has been shown on it as time has gone on, as stylistically what would probably be a better style depending upon the situation. And so today we're going to talk about Jean-Claude Van Damme versus Steven Seagal. They had those movies in the 80s and 90s that just, man, they were great. So action-packed, the fighting scenes. Every young guy around those times when they would watch those movies would just get fired up. And I used to sit around with my friends and watch those movies, and we'd go out in the backyard. And my buddy Greg, my brother, who's coming on today, we would all practice moves and play fighting and stuff like that. And it was just a lot of fun. But those movies got us pumped up. And Greg is someone that I met in 7th grade, and we knew each other. We were around each other a little bit. And then 8th grade, we got a little tighter, had more classes together, and he invited me over to his house. And that's when I met his brothers. And from that point on, I was with him almost every day, pretty much every day, every night. We'd go over there, and his brothers had a lot of friends that I became friends with. And it literally was like a party at his house every time you went over. But Greg's the kind of person that you want in your foxhole. You want to have your back. He's really a loyal guy. He's friendly. He's funny. He's cool. And we talk about fighting in this, obviously, because Jean-Claude Van Damme and Steven Seagal, that's what their movies were about, right? So we talk about that a little bit. And just to preface that I'm not a tough guy. I've been in a couple fights. Greg doesn't walk around he's not a bully. In fact, he said he's only ever started one fight in his life, and he lost that one. He was like 12, and he learned his lesson. So, but he did have a lot more experience in street fights and stuff like that than I did. But I can say that most of them that I know of, he was actually defending someone else or sticking up for someone. Again, he's not a bully. He doesn't go looking for fights, but he's pretty good at it. And so I thought that he would be a good person to talk to about this topic. I've been kicking it around and thinking about who I could have come on. And just because of his experience, and also because we used to watch those movies together, and we had a lot of fun, and the movies are interesting. And I don't know that they totally hold up, but they for the time period, they were amazing. And those guys brought us Steven Seagal and Jean-Claude Van Damme, regardless of what they've become now or what they are now. They brought us a lot of joy back in the day, and it was a lot of fun to watch those movies. And Greg is, like I said, Greg's my brother. He's my best friend, and really appreciate him coming on. And this is a fun topic for me. So I hope you guys enjoy. And here's the episode. Later. No, peace. No, what did we say? See ya. Wouldn't want to be ya. Trying to come up with 80s stuff. It's hard to remember everything. Here's the episode. Welcome back to another exciting episode of Gnarly versus Rad. I'm your host, Gnarly. Every week I bring on a guest who is on Team Rad, and we have discussions where we solve some of the greatest debates from the 80s and early 90s. Today I've got a very special guest. If you want to introduce yourself to our listeners.
My name is Greg, and I've been boys with Gnarly for quite some time.
Yeah, absolutely, man. We've known each other. I was thinking about this. We've known each other. We met in 7th grade, I think, but we didn't really know each other real well. We had some classes together, and I thought you were hilarious. And then 8th grade, we got tighter and we had more classes together. And that's when you invited me over to your house for the first time. And that's when I met all the brothers and everything over there. So I'm not sure how old are you in 8th grade?
Best friends since.
Yeah. And how old are you in 8th grade? Like 13?
Something like that. Yeah, it all started off with the rubber bands snapping on each other's.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, we used to put rubber bands on each other's arms, and then when the teacher would look away, one of us would lift the rubber bands up as high as we could, let it go, and snap it until the other person couldn't take it, and neither one of us couldn't not take it. So we just kept doing it, and we had these welts. And oh man, and then Mrs. Hefner's class where I gave you that pen and you shot it and it went right by her face on the first day of class. And she's like, "I'm gonna have to separate you guys already, I can tell." And we were a menace for her right away. And today we've got a really interesting topic. I'm excited to talk about. I've been thinking about it a lot, and I thought Greg would be a perfect guest for this topic. Today we're going to talk about Jean-Claude Van Damme versus Steven Seagal. I'm taking Steven Seagal's side. Greg's taking Jean-Claude Van Damme. And before we jump into it, I want to start out with a question, Greg, just so we
Sure.
can not qualify. I don't need to qualify my guest as an expert necessarily, but what knowledge do you have? So you and I have both watched a lot of Seagal and Van Damme movies together, actually, over the years, and we'll get
Yep.
back to that. But so as far as like fighting styles, because that's what these movies are based on, um, we've both been in fights. You know, you've been in a lot more fights than I have. I've been in a couple. I've only ever been in one where there was more than one person involved, where everybody was just kind of fighting and it was crazy. You've been in several where and you've never started it. You started one fight, you told me, and you learned your lesson from that one. So you never started any of these fights, but you've been in multiple fights where there was more than one person that was attacking you. And you've done very well in those situations. So between Van Damme and Seagal, which of the two of them do you think is better for a real life street situation, and especially if you're dealing with more than one attacker?
I would have to say Van Damme for sure.
Yeah. I would tend to agree with that. Like, so when these movies came out, we didn't know anything about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It was a thing, but we hadn't watched UFC, hadn't come out yet or anything like that. And we watched a bunch of UFC fights later. So, but since then, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu became a thing, and it's kind of based on the same thing, like the traps and locks and breaks. And, so I've taken some martial arts lightly, and one thing I always thought about with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is if you're fighting more than one person, the last thing you want to do is go to the ground. Because if you're trying to put someone in an arm bar, then their friend's going to be kicking you in the face or the head or the ribs, right? So I would agree with you on that. I would say because Van Damme, he's a what is he? Shotokan. He's like a second degree black belt, Shotokan, karate, and kickboxing. I think kickboxing, striking. I think probably Muay Thai, and then
Yep.
that would probably be more in line with Muay Thai. Would probably be the best thing when you're dealing with multiple attackers. Um,
Like you said, staying on your feet and being agile and
right? Yeah, you don't want to go to the ground when you're dealing
not
with
at all.
multiple people. Right. Okay.
But like you said, one on one, then yeah, maybe, your jiu-jitsu, you're going to lock somebody up and you're going to hurt somebody.
Right, right. And that's the same thing with the similarities there. Seagal is Aikido, and Steven Seagal is what is he, like a seventh degree? Excuse me. Steven Seagal is a seventh Dan black belt in Aikido. So there's a lot of similarities between that and Jiu-Jitsu and the fact that you're going for breaks and stuff like that. It seems like there's not as much ground game involved in Aikido. I don't think. It seems like he's usually standing up
Yeah.
and, So that's one thing that's good. And in the movies, like he'll use one guy to block himself from the other guy or wrap someone's arm around someone else's neck and throw them both to the ground. But in real life, that doesn't really work, right? Like that.
No, not in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, you got to hit someone and knock them out to stop one person at a time. And in the movies, like when you're breaking someone's arm and then you reach over and grab someone else's arm, that other person is usually standing there waiting for you to do that, which in real life, that
Not
doesn't happen, right? They're not standing there waiting for you to turn to them for their turn.
They're coming, they're coming hard.
What's that?
They're coming and they're coming hard.
Yeah, exactly. So you got to be agile, you got to be moving and be able to use your feet as well as your hands. And so I would agree with you on that. I would think that that the best art between the two of those would be kickboxing for that type of situation where there's more than one person. In these movies, it seems like they're almost always fighting more than one person. Well, in Seagal movies, I'll say.
Yeah.
So here's another question. So what's your favorite Seagal movie?
I'd say Marked for Death.
I love it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I
I mean, it's not that I dislike Seagal. I mean, I've watched all his too, you know what I mean?
right.
But I just gravitated more towards Van Damme.
It's funny. It's funny that Seagal is that Marked for Death is your favorite Seagal movie because that's my favorite Seagal movie too. Just some of the quotes in that movie, like the Jamaican posse and like the voodoo aspect, and it's just and then the Screwface, who's the main guy for the Jamaican posse. He when he says, "If a man committed crime against you, he must be paid back 1,000 times." It's like such a great line. There's songs that have sampled it since then, and so I would say that's my favorite Seagal movie too. How about Van Damme? What's your favorite Van Damme movie?
I was thinking about that for a little bit now, and I'm tossing it up between Bloodsport and Kickboxer.
That's yeah, we're on the exact same page. That's exactly where I am too. So if you're comparing those two movies, what would be your final determining factor? And what are you thinking if you had to pick one of those two? And I agree that those are my two favorite also.
I'm probably gonna go with Bloodsport.
Same here.
I'm going with Bloodsport. It's just the my four favorite with him was probably Bloodsport, Kickboxer, The Quest, and Lionheart. I mean,
Yeah, I love Lionheart.
that style of movie, that style of fighting, where he's in contest, and that just that just appeals to me.
Yeah, yeah. And Bloodsport, like when that first came out, I almost feel like that inspired UFC. Like we've been lucky enough to see the progression of these things. You know, when we were younger, all we had was boxing. That was it. You know, you might be lucky if there was a kickboxing fight on ESPN2 at midnight, right? And
Yeah,
then Bloodsport comes out, and we're like, oh wait, there's like all kinds of like different fighting events that are taking place throughout the world. And that was just such a great representation of like how things are. It's not a boxing match where it's controlled and you know
yes,
there's 8 count. It's and dude, how about Chung Lee in Bloodsport, man? That
Bolo.
yes, that dude was freaking like scary as hell. Like
Yeah,
that guy, man, you never see anything like it. Like a lot of times you see in like older kung fu and karate movies, you know, you see the beauty of the Asian art and its speed and its technique, and it's usually a smaller guy. But when you combine that speed and that technique with a dude that's as huge as Bolo, it was just like, and that dude just, and like, you know, he's real. Like, he's a
yeah,
real fighter, you know? Like,
not
so
choreographed, and like you said, not an actor, but not acting the karate style.
yeah, right. Yeah, he brings an element of reality to it for sure. And I think that the storylines in Seagal's movie are a little more. What do I want to say? What am I thinking? The storylines in his are a little more Hollywood. I would
Yes,
say
I was
probably.
going to theatrical, but yes, Hollywood.
Yeah, theatrical is a good word for it. Yeah, and then the Van Damme movies, I feel like they're trying to be a little more based in reality, like Bloodsport was based on Frank Dukes, right? The true story of the
Yep.
Kumite. And I think Kickboxer was that based on a real story too?
I'm not sure.
That was or not either. I feel like it. I feel like it was, or maybe the guy that plays his brother in that. No, it's the guy that plays his brother in Bloodsport that gets his. Is it Bloodsport that he breaks his brother's back, or is that kick? That's Kickboxer where he breaks his brother's back. I
Yeah,
think.
yes, because like you said, Bolo, he's the one that did it.
Yeah, yeah. The so in Kickboxer, that's where. Now I'm getting those two movies mixed up, man.
I think they all kind of have the similar
Yeah,
theme.
right, right. Well, one of those two movies, the guy that plays his brother, I think, was a real fighter too. So like I think they tried to use real fighters like as much as they could in the Van Damme movies. I don't feel like Seagal really brought any of that element to any of his movies. Like we said, it was more theatrical, more Hollywood.
Yes, and I'm not saying they both weren't choreographed on both sides, but I feel like Seagal movies were more choreographed. You know what I mean?
That's
Van Damme was definitely, like you were saying, more of like realistic, more of a realistic fight, like
yeah,
something that would really happen.
yeah, yeah. I agree with that. I agree with that.
Not tossing around dudes, like spinning them around,
Right.
throwing them into one another, knocking down six other ones. And
Right, exactly. Exactly. So if the two of them were to have a real fight in real life, who would you bet on?
oh, I'm definitely betting on Van Damme.
Man, damn. Um, yeah, I'm on Seagal's side, so I have to argue for Seagal.
I,
But yeah, I mean, I think, well, okay, so Van Damme, Seagal had like real fights back in the day, and supposedly he was like working like special ops and stuff like that. I'm sure you've heard those, and
yep,
I don't
yep,
know if those rumors are true. I mean, no one's going to corroborate or verify. Like, yeah, he was special forces. We were on this mission together. You know what I mean? Like, no one's going to come out and say that. So it's kind of hard to prove one way or the other. But I feel like Van Damme might be more Hollywood in real life.
right,
Seagal, like Van Damme just strikes me, and we both know people that have kind of, even people that kind of look like Van Damme that have started fights and then backed out and left everyone else to fight. So I don't know. I mean, I know Van Damme had tournaments and stuff like that when he was younger. I mean, when he was 18, I think he won. I know he won a bodybuilding contest when he was 18, and I know he was doing karate since he was young. So I'm sure he had tournaments, and I'm sure he can really fight. But if it was like a street fight to the death, I don't. I might go with Seagal because if he gets a hold of him, I don't know that Van Damme would know what to do. But Van Damme is so strong that he'd probably just be able to power his way out of it, though.
right. Like you said, if he gets a hold of them.
Right? Yeah, that's the other thing too. And Seagal doesn't have any kicks. Like he throws kicks, but they're definitely Hollywood stuntman kicks. You know?
Like you said, it's all blocking and responding off of what they're doing.
Yeah, yeah. And but I will in real life, I do know that Van Damme got knocked out by Chuck Zito. You know who Chuck Zito is?
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you know that story? Did you ever hear
No,
that?
I don't think so.
Pretty amazing. They used to talk about it on Howard Stern. And Chuck Zito's, he's an actor. He was in Oz. He was in True Lies, The Rock, Carlito's Way. I mean, he's been in a lot of movies. He also was the bodyguard for a young fighter back at the time by the name of Mike Tyson. So if you're a bodyguard for Mike Tyson, you're pretty legit.
Better know
Um,
what you're doing.
what's that?
That you better know what you're doing.
Yeah, yep, exactly. And so he did some other bodyguard stuff as well. And he tells a story. They worked together and everything was cool. And then they were at a restaurant and the maitre d came over to Chuck and said, "Hey, Van Damme's over there and he's talking shit about you." And Chuck Zito's like, "What?" And I don't know if you know who Chuck Zito is. You know what he looks like. He
Yep.
just looks like a dude like you don't want to mess with this guy. And Van Damme, so the maitre d said, "Yeah, he Van Damme said that you don't have any heart." And he goes, "Oh, really? He said that?" So Chuck Zito goes walking over to him, and he's like, "Did you say I don't have any heart?" And you got to give Van Damme credit because he was honest. He goes, "Yeah, I said that." And then Chuck Zito knocked him out,
Okay.
and yeah, at the table. And when he knocked him out, he broke his hand. And the next day was supposed to be his first day on Oz, and he wasn't a very established actor just yet. So he's like, "Man, if I go in there with a cast on, I'm gonna lose this job." So he never went to the hospital. He had a broken hand, and when Oz, you remember the show Oz?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, when that first came out, he was acting with a broken hand through the whole like first season. He had a broken
Oh,
hand.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah, it's a pretty interesting story. Now, I've never heard anything like that happening to Seagal. I'm not saying that it couldn't. I mean, anyone could get knocked out, especially by someone like Chuck Zito. He's pretty big and he's obviously skilled. But so if the two of them were to fight, uh, yeah, I would say if Seagal can get a hold of him, break one of his arms, or break his wrist, or break his leg somehow, then I would go with Seagal. But if it turns into a boxing match, then which most fights do,
Yes.
then Seagal's in trouble. But again, Seagal knows how to counter those things too. So It could be interesting.
And a lot of fights do go to the ground. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Probably
that's
times out of 10, unless you're getting that first punch in or two and dropping them, more than likely it's going to end up in the ground at some point.
that's a good point. Yeah, or at least a scrum. At least you're
Yeah.
going into the clinch and holding. And I would. Okay, so if it's in the clinch and they're still standing up, who do you favor in that?
I, I think maybe I could lean maybe more towards like you Seagal, just because, like what you said, he gets him in a hold and breaks a bone or something like that. Well, I mean, you're pretty much, I ain't gonna say you're done, but you're
Right.
definitely impaired a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. He knows how to use his leverage and pressure points and where to put a hold, where to put a lock. And I feel like Van Dam might be a little lost in that situation. I'm not that I mean clinching happens all the time in kickboxing, but when you train a certain way, that's how you fight. So
Yes.
if you're training in kickboxing and you're training that when you get into clinch, you just stand there and you both hold each other, and then the ref comes and breaks you up, then that's kind of what your mindset's going to be in a real fight. So if he's standing there just kind of waiting, that's that split second is when Seagal can, like I said, could break something on him, and then that changes how that fight would go completely.
And I think with the kicking aspect, a lot of people don't expect that type of fight. You know what I mean? They're expecting just punches being thrown or something like that. You start
Right.
throwing feet in the mix, that's a whole nother ball game. You
Yeah,
got to watch out for just more than hands.
that's a good point. That's a complete another set of weapons. Yeah, that's
Because
a
now focusing on feet, you throw some feints with the feet, and then you hit them with something else.
yep, yep. You're right. You're right. It would be I mean, and just the I think just the strength factor, Van Damme I think is probably so much stronger than Seagal. But at the same time, Seagal knows how to use people's strength, speed, and momentum against them. So there's always that factor too, you
I
know.
think if they would fight today, the goal might only last 2 seconds. I don't know if you've seen them, but
Yeah, that's a good point. I should have clarified in their prime because today it's Van Damme all the way. Because Van Damme looks like he's maintained his training and stuff at least to a point. He still looks good. Seagal looks like he's training with hoagies and donuts, and he trains like me. So
donut,
what is it?
taking an intermission with some donuts and
Right, exactly, exactly. I will say that Van Damme is a better guitar player, and I mean, sorry, Seagal is a better guitar player and singer than Van Damme. But Van Damme is a better what?
dancer.
Dancer, 100%. And you know that because you have 100%, and I love this, and we got a special treat for the listeners at the end of this episode, but you know this because you totally took his dance style and you brought it into your own thing, and people don't really remember, I guess. Like it was the first time I saw him, like he's doing the Van Damme dance, but like people don't pick up on it. So now it's like the Greg dance, and you got the split and everything in there, which is freaking amazing, man. It's amazing.
I know Cindy was watching some TikToks yesterday and came across a guy dancing like my style, and she couldn't stop laughing, and she kept watching all his videos. Like he's dancing like you. This is exactly how you dance.
Yeah,
But
it's the Greg style. It's 100% the Greg style of dancing for sure, man.
I know when I watch it, I'm like, man, I don't know. That's what's gonna.
It's awesome, man. It's so unique. Like you see it and it's just like, oh yeah, that's the Greg style. You know what I mean? I mean, yes, Van Damme might have kind of started it, but you perfected it, brother.
I wouldn't go that far, but
You brought it to another level, my man.
one of my three moves.
When in doubt, split it out. But and you see in some of those videos, I've seen the videos. It just makes people happy. Like people like people don't expect it, and you bust it out. And like the I heard in the one video, the guy was like, "Oh man, he did that split on concrete." In the background, it's like, yeah. And
But people, why you?
did you do the at one point when we were younger? Did you do the split between two chairs like he did in the one movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, that's incredible, man.
Well, he does straddle.
Between two chairs, though, right?
Yeah, like the straddle and the split are a little different. A straddle when your feet are out to the side.
Oh, right,
You know what I
right.
mean?
Yeah,
That to me is definitely harder.
Yeah, I got you. So his legs are going straight out the side. Your one is a little bit in front of the other,
Yeah,
right?
I'm front to back. He's like
Right.
left to right.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I remember you used to do that. And then after we would watch all these movies, we go out in the backyard and you would practice these moves on everyone.
100%. I mean, every time you get done watching one of the movies, it's like, oh, I'm going to taking karate. And I never got around to it. I've always wanted to, but
You don't need to. You have this like natural, just kind of sense of movement and balance and timing. And some people have that. You know, some people are just natural. Maybe it comes from being athletic. I mean, you played football when you were younger, up until how many, what, like 10, 15 years ago you stopped playing?
playing flag, yeah, competitive flag football.
You still do P90X and you still keep in good shape and you know
Yep.
you're athletic. So and that makes a big difference too. You know, some like big fat dudes like they got that one hitter quitter power, you know. Some guys just have natural athletes are always going to have an advantage over someone who's just in a fight and maybe trained a little bit. But the natural athlete, the athletics do come into play because that's what a fight is. It's demonstrating your athleticism.
Endurance. Yep.
Yeah, endurance is huge too. 100%. So between Seagal and Van Damme, who do you think is the scariest villain? We got Screwface from Marked for Death. We got Tong Po from Kickboxer or Chung Li from Bloodsport. Who do you think is the best villain? Scariest?
I mean, I would say Screwface is probably the scariest, I would say, but the one I would mess with is probably Chun Li.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's one. If I'm choosing one not to mess with, that's the guy.
Yeah. I'd agree with that. Because, I mean, Screwface is going to. The other two guys, it's more of a like one-on-one kind of challenge. Like it's almost like a sport. It is a sport. With Screwface, like he's just gonna kill you. Like he's gonna use
Yes.
a gun, he's gonna bash you with something. With Tong Po or Chung Li, like once you're out, you're out. I don't think they would like necessarily kill someone like on
No.
purpose.
No.
So all right, so Chung Li versus Tong Po. Who do you think wins that?
I mean, that Muay Thai fighting, that's tough to.
It's brutal.
Yeah. I'm
They're,
probably because of the strength and size. I'm probably going with Chun Li.
I'd agree with that. Yeah, I'd agree with that. I don't know what Chung Lee's style is in Bloodsport. I don't know if they ever say. I'm sure they do. But yeah, but Muay Thai. I remember like that was like the first time I really knew what Muay Thai was when I saw kickboxing. I'm just like, oof.
Tough to defend. They get in close. They grab you up, throwing knees, throwing elbows.
Yeah, yep. They call it the art of eight limbs. I think is what
Yep.
they call it. So elbows, knees, feet, fist, headbutts, and then is that the one where he dips his hands in glass?
Yep.
Yeah, man, that's pretty freaking tough. But yeah, I'd probably go with Chung Lee too, just based on size and skill and toughness. I'd go with him too as well for that. So
But like you said, Tumpo, that might be more realistic style. You know what I mean?
that's true. Yeah.
Something that you probably would use more in a fight, and that you see more these days too.
That's
People,
true. And he's got more weapons. He's got more weapons with the elbows and the headbutt and I wonder how I can't I'm trying to compare them in my head size wise. I don't know how tall Chung Li is. I don't know what their weight would be. Like just to guess, like if Chun Li's like 240,
that's exactly what I was going to say. Something like
what's
that.
what's Tong Po then, do you think?
I would
He's
say
pretty big.
definitely taller, and I would say maybe he's more on the 200,
Okay.
maybe a little more, 210, something like
That's what I
that.
was gonna say, like maybe 210, 220 even. Because he's pretty svelte, like he's pretty
Yeah.
big. And he's tall.
And 30, 40 pounds of muscle, I mean, in my opinion, it matters. It helps you.
It helps you, but like you said, endurance, once you get past that point of it helping you, then it starts weighing you down and slowing
Yeah.
you down too.
Yes. Correct. I would agree with that.
Yep, no doubt. So my last argument for Seagal would be that he is a better guitar player. I love his movies. I love Van Damme movies. This is a fun topic to discuss. But since I'm on the side of Seagal, I'm gonna go with Seagal. I'm gonna go with Van Damme underestimating Seagal, throwing something crazy, Seagal catching him, breaking his arm, and that's it. Fight's over. So I'm going Seagal. What do you think with Van Damme? How do you think it would go?
I'm going definitely Van Damme. Seagal coming in, not expecting some of the moves, the kicks, and not catching that spinning, his famous jumping, spinning back roundhouse kick, but definitely maybe some kick to the chest, kick to the leg first to bring him down, and then maybe a knee to the face.
Yeah, I could see, and that spinning. Yeah, it's going to be hard for Seagal to catch any of Van Damme's kicks because they're so fast and so hard. Seagal would have to get inside right away and lock him
Yeah,
up, not
yeah.
let him do his kicks. Yeah, for
In
sure.
my Yes, he's going to have to get in close, and because he's not going to win outside.
Right. No way. Nope. All right, brother. Well, I appreciate it. I know you work hard and it's been a long day, so I appreciate you taking the time to hook up with me and come on my show. It was a lot of fun, just like I knew it would be. I hope you had fun and
Oh, absolutely. I always got time for my favorite brother.
same here, brother. Same here, man. Any last thoughts?
No, I'm just I would actually love for Van Damme to come out with a couple more like that. There's just get me pumped up. I mean, they really do.
Yeah, I agree.
And I'm not saying I liked all of his movies, but those style movies that he did just seem more realistic to me.
Almost like a documentary.
Yes, less Hollywood than Seagal. Not that I'm saying Seagal's not a bad fighter or anything like that, because I loved his movies too. They were my two favorite to watch growing up.
Right. Same here. Yep. Yep. They kind
But
of
I always just felt like Van Damme was more realistic.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that 100%. 100%, brother. So, all right, my man. Well, I'll let you get going again. Thanks for coming on the show. I appreciate it, brother, and I'll talk to you again soon, man.
Absolutely. Much love, bud.
Much love, brother. Have a good night.
You too, bro.
All right, man. See you.
All right. Bye.